All right, welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your guide and host through the show. And today on the show is our monthly series, the Monday Market Minute with Carrie McCormick from the Carrie McCormick Real Estate Group with At Properties here in Chicago. Now, Carrie is a top 1%, actually, she's a top 1% of 1% producer here in Chicago with over 20 years of experience helping buyers, sellers, investors, and renters. In fact, year to date, I just looked this up yesterday, out of 44,000 real estate agents in the Chicagoland area, Carrie is currently ranked number 10 in production. She's a true superstar and an expert in everything from first-time home buyers, veteran investors, and luxury property sales. She also works with a lot of developers and is often chosen to represent their high-end developments. So please visit Carrie at her website, which is carriemccormickre.com. Again, carriemccormickre.com. And also follow her on Instagram, which is at Carrie McCormick Real Estate. Once again, Carrie, welcome to the show. And for our viewers, it's a beautiful backyard and pool.
Yes, I think I can see in my reflection the swan floating. I don't know if you guys can see it too.
Yeah, we can. That's I bought one of those swans for my sister's pool down in Florida, and so just a quick funny story. So I bought the swan, which is like the real popular one. Obviously, you have the same one. Then I also went out and bought a giant lobster and a giant turtle, and all three of those, they're about the same size. They completely dwarf her entire pool, and every 6 months I just buy a new one and send it to her, and she's like, enough with the pool toys. But so I love the swan.
I'll have to get a few more.
Well, trust me, you don't want more. So much work. You know how long it takes to blow those things up. It takes forever, even with the generated air thing. Anyway, so what do we want to talk about today?
Yeah, so I mean, it's August in the city, so a lot has happened in the last few months, obviously, in our world, and in particular in our city. We've kind of every week we get some, news of what's happening. So it's just kind of talking about the attitude of our city and how people are feeling. But it's really the way that people are feeling right now is moving our market, and it's people who either now have to work from home, for a longer than expected, or their kids are not going back to school, or just how they're feeling about our unfortunate crime that's happened. They're making moves in their lives. And again, that's what's keeping our market moving here in Chicago. So we are seeing a very healthy market in the city. But I always talk to my sellers and my buyers about Chicago being more of like a sub-market, meaning each neighborhood is a market of its own, if you will. So, Bucktown is very different than how the Gold Coast is selling, and, different than Lincoln Park. And, just even then drilling it down a little bit more into the single families versus condos versus homes with rooftop decks, you really kind of have to drill down into each market to see how they're moving. So, part of being a broker and a good broker for our clients is having knowledge of the market, and how do we advise our clients, our sellers, on how to position their home properly in today's market. And one thing that I use a lot, and I know my office is a big advocate of it, is if anyone uses InfoSparks, which is a tool in the MLS. InfoSparks is a fabulous tool because it pulls all the data from the MLS. And you can sit down with a seller and just talk about absorption rate and month supply and medium prices and all of that good stuff, just to see, again, if you're in, let's just call it the Gold Coast market, over $1 million, what is the month supply right now in the Gold Coast? And actually, I do have a seller in the Gold Coast who's over $2 million. And right now the market time is about 20 months. So setting that expectation right now is, when you put your home on the market, you're so excited, you're ready to make that move. But, this is where the market is right now. And InfoSparks is good just from a data history standpoint too, as you're looking at historical data of how this market performs. The difference in 2020 right now is we're in times that we've never been in before. So it's, again, you can look at the history of a neighborhood and the data, but you also have to have knowledge of a little foresight of where is the market going and what is the market looking for. And again, how do we position ourselves to be successful?
So when you have a seller with an amazing property in one of the best neighborhoods, arguably the best neighborhood in Chicago, the Gold Coast, and you say, hey, by the way, we're looking at about a 20-month lead time here. That's got to be, I imagine most sellers don't want to wait that long, but I guess having that information, is that it's still a difficult conversation, or are sellers in that position, more understanding of that with that kind of price point?
It's always difficult, no one
Sure.
wants to hear that news, but, again, having facts in front of you and say like, okay, here are the facts of where the market's
Right.
at. And then again, it's our job to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what is your expectation and what are your goals? Do you
Right.
need to move this in 2 months? Do you need to move it in a year? Are you fine with 2 years? So again, kind of backing the conversation up to what their expectations and their goals are. And if they do want to move it quicker, it's really going to boil down to being at a price point that, is going to move it, and then coming up with an aggressive marketing plan to back up that price.
And with more modestly priced homes, I imagine, because rates are so low, obviously in the $2 million range, you're just excluding the vast majority of buyers who can't afford that type of unit. But in the more modestly priced homes here in Chicago, condos, single family homes, et cetera, we're seeing tremendous competition, right, by buyers because rates are so incredibly low. So can you talk a little bit about that? How are you prepping the buyers and the sellers around the multiple offer kind of scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, even right before this call, we're headed into a multiple offer situation. And it's really, again, when you meet with your buyers, is prep them about where the market conditions are and have them have that pre-approval letter ready, have them, start thinking about a seller letter of what you're going to say to the seller, adding that personal touch to it. Again, just prepping them through the agreement or the offer paperwork so they know, how are we going to position ourselves best to be in a multiple offer situation. I also like to say to my buyers is, think about the price that you're comfortable with now, not when we get into that multiple offer situation, because that's when you start getting emotional, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
become very competitive and you want to win and, you don't want to overpay for a property either. And that's where I come into play to be kind of like, a little more of a business manager, kind of helping them through that. But, just, again, guiding them beforehand before we get into that multiple offer situation so they're successful in the outcome.
Is your general, and again, I know every property is unique and has its own strategy, but generally speaking, where we are right now with rates and so many buyers with so much more purchasing power than they had before, I know I can afford a lot more than I used to just simply because of rates. Is your general thought to price a property right at market value or a little bit under, a little bit over? When you know that you're likely to get a lot of activity, do you have a general rule of thumb on that, or is it different every time?
It's a little different every time. And again, it backs up to what the seller's timeline is and, what they need to get out of it. It's always best practice to price the property correctly out the gate. But there's some sellers that want to push the price a little bit and just see how the market reacts to it. If they do have a property that people are seeking now, with the pandemic, everyone's looking for more space, right? They're looking for outdoor space.
Yeah.
So if you have a property that offers that, you've got great outdoor space, a yard, you've got, an office, you've got multiple bedrooms, whatever it is. And again, we'll use Bucktown as an example. If there's low inventory and the seller has the property that the market wants, we might be able to push the price a little bit, but we also have to be careful with appraisals.
Yep.
And again, you don't want to overprice the property too. So it's a little bit of a science to it.
Sure.
But the market always speaks and you'll know within the first 2 weeks, what, if you priced it right.
And I have a quick tip for all the buyers out there because I'm in the process of buying right now. And my lender was Joel with Guaranteed Rate, who comes on the show every month. We love Joel; he's great. So he was always my first choice. And I said, just in case for some reason it doesn't work out, and Guaranteed Rate says, "Too bad, so sad, you don't get a you don't get a loan," which I didn't think was going to happen, but I thought I better have a contingency plan. So just I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. But I said I better get at least 2 other backups just in case. And I went went to two very, very reputable places to get my pre-approval. And I think the activity is so incredibly busy right now for lending institutions for refinances and also first-time purchases because of rates being where they are. Both of the people I worked with completely just fell off, and I got lost in the shuffle. Thankfully, I didn't have to use them because the guaranteed rate thing went perfectly. But I was shocked. I was like, this is a large loan, or at least to me, it seems large. And I was surprised that they would just, both the other reps I worked with at other firms just completely disappeared on me. So I just want to encourage everyone who's working with buyers right now to have a couple of backups just in case your loan officer is too busy, because I know just how slammed they are. So I don't know if you've experienced that as well with buyers. It's like you have to really stay on top of the loan officers.
Well, I have a guaranteed rate.
Yeah.
Person I work with a lot too, and I've worked with him for years.
Yeah.
He always does 110%. So I feel like I refer him to a client. I've never had any negative feedback, so I feel very confident, and it's by a guaranteed rate thing. They're all
they're all awesome. But it was amazing to me that I would have to follow up with these other agents going, what else do you need? And I was like, this shouldn't be this hard when I'm basically giving you a pretty decent commission. And sure enough, back to guaranteed rate, which we're both big fans of. And also, I wanted to also lastly talk about renters, right? So I was a renter. Well, I've owned stuff in the past, but for recently, the last couple of years, it just made more sense to me to rent. And I got a wonderful place that I lived in, and I'm now moving out to buy a wonderful home. And I waited until I had a certain amount of savings and the rates were where they are. And anyway, I'm a perfect example of somebody who was on the sidelines. And then through the pandemic, I was like, I need a bigger place. I don't want to be renting anymore. So I'm curious, and if you've seen that growth as well, where you have all these renters who are now like, okay, now's the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a huge movement in our market as well. The rental prices are coming down because people are vacating the rentals. And just like you've been on the fence, and this has pushed you over to make the purchase, right?
Yeah.
So interest rates, like you said, are very low. Also, we're seeing, think about college students, who was a big population of our rental pool, right? So the college students are not coming back to school. So we're getting a surplus of rental inventory, which now we've got, the supply and demand effect, so we've got a lot of supply, and now the demand's low for them. So prices are coming down on the rentals. And then also I've experienced with a lot of the rentals in high-rise buildings, more so in like Streeterville or Gold Coast, is people don't want to be in high rises right now, and they don't get use of the amenities. Amenities are closing down or taking them by appointment. So the beauty of that and the convenience of being in a high rise has diminished a little bit. So the rental market's taking a hit this year, but again, it's pushing people to purchases.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, I think, for all of our listeners who have sphere of influence or contact list people who are renting, is to really run those numbers now that rates are, well, at the timing of this, are sub 3% in most cases. Jumbos are even right around 3% in some cases. So you have this just amazing opportunity to really run the numbers with someone and say, and to your point too, I live in a high rise, and all of the amenities, and I really didn't take much advantage of them when they were available, but they're really not available now, and no fault of the building. It's just for safety's sake. And so now it's like, okay, now I do love where I live, but now I can buy something really amazing, and I'm not using a lot of the stuff in the building I'm in anyway. So perfect opportunity.
Yeah. But Chicago, we're all resilient here, and we love our city, and we hope that, it ends soon. A lot of the crime and the looting ends soon. And, it's our job, again, to educate our clients and keep people moving in the city.
Yeah, I agree. We've had it's been a rough couple of months here in Chicago, but this is a city that is just so beautiful and has so much to offer, and there's so many wonderful things. My mom used to say, there's really only 3 cities in the country. There's New York, and I hope not embarrass her and not insult anyone from any other cities, but she would say the 3 best cities in the country are New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. And I always thought That might be right. I don't know, man. That sounds about right. So we're super lucky to be in one of those great grand cities that seems to bounce back really quickly, even despite having a lot of unrest right now. But anyway, anything else you want to mention before we wrap up, before we say goodbye for another month?
You're going to put me on the spot. There was something, and I just slipped my mind of what I wanted to chat about.
Well, as I'm saying that, I'm watching the swan literally just move past you, so I'm in a daze as well. But I think we've given a lot of value this time, and we've talked a lot about sort of how to prep buyers, sellers, renters as well, in this sort of really unusual time. Because honestly, like, I'm sure you feel probably the same way as you've been doing this, several decades and as a top agent, and you just don't know how long, where we are right now, how busy everything is. We don't know how long that's going to last. And so now's this great opportunity for all of our listeners to reach out to everybody you know and see how they're doing, see what their plans are. And I didn't have any plan of purchasing 6 months ago. I mean, I thought I'd do it in the next year or two, but here I am, and I've already made that commitment. So
Welcome to the club.
well, I've been in the club before, but it is nice to be back, especially with that lovely interest deduction I'll get every year from my taxes. So I really love that club. That's the club I love. But anyway, well, Carrie, once again, we thank you. You've been with us since the very beginning. You're one of our absolute favorite people to have on the show. And I want to encourage everyone listening. Number one, if you are not an agent, but maybe you're a buyer, a seller, a renter, or an investor, and you're looking to work with one of the best possible agents in the Chicagoland area, Carrie McCormick is your person. She's incredible. I've worked with her personally. She's amazing. And I couldn't encourage people more to reach out to you. And what is the best way that anyone should be reaching out to you?
I mean, I'm old school. Just call me 312-961-4612. You can see I have my phone right next to me. It's always in my hand. I never let it go.
And also, please visit Carrie at her website, which is Carrie McCormick. And by the way, it's an amazing website. It really is. And even if you're an agent, check out what Carrie built, because it's a really good example of what a wonderful broker agent website should look like. And that's carriemccormickre.com. And then lastly, you have to check out Carrie's Instagram account. It's just about the best Instagram account I've seen. She does it all herself, and it's another amazing model of what agents can do to promote their brand, but also not to be that annoying realtor that's just constantly like, look at this new listing. Look at it. Carrie puts out amazing content that people want to read and see, and she's got an incredible following. So please find her at Carrie McCormick Real Estate. That's at Instagram. So Carrie McCormick Real Estate. Carrie, thank you so much. Maybe I will do the next episode from a pool, because that just looks too inviting. I'm in a boring
On the swan.
I would be more than happy to float on this one. I'm in a boring office room right now, so now I'm super jealous. But have a wonderful month, week, and I know how busy you are, so we appreciate constantly you coming on our show for like 4 or 5 years now. We love you so much and appreciate you. And on behalf of the listeners, thank you as always. And on behalf of Carrie and myself, we want to thank our listeners and our viewers for continuing to support our show. We're now the largest podcast in the country for real estate agents. We couldn't be more honored to serve you. And we'll see you next month. So thanks, Carrie.
Stay safe.